the book Heaven is for Real that we wrote talks about our experience with Colton, or more or less maybe Colton's experience with God. He about died in surgery almost at age 4, and the most scary event in my life as a parent. I think any parent can relate to the fact that your probably biggest nightmare is maybe watching one of your children almost die, and we were there. And we were caught up in all the taking care of our child, the fear, being in the hospital. I think in 17 days in the hospital, I had 5 nights of sleep. It just took everything out of my wife and I. And even in the hospital, even in our lowest moments, Colton tried to talk to us about heaven. I remember once in his room, he said, "Dad, you know I almost died." Scared me to death. Because I was like, here's my 3-year-old, not quite 4. And as a parent, you kind of brace yourself for the sex talk with your teenager. But I was so unprepared to talk to my toddler about dying. They're supposed to make it to 4. And I changed the subject because I thought, okay, maybe he overheard a nurse. Maybe they thought he was under anesthesia. I had no idea where his reference about him knowing where he almost died came from. It wasn't until after we got out of the hospital and after recuperating, and he said several things that kind of just went right over our heads. But 4 months later, the wake-up call came when we're driving back in the same town where the hospital was, and we said, "Colton, you want to go back?" He's like, "No, send my sister Cassie." You know, sibling rivalry is alive and well in my home. And he says, "But you know, Dad, the angels, they sang to me while I was there." And all of a sudden, we just stopped. And it was like one of those moments in time where I looked at my wife, she looked at me, "Has he talked to you about angels before?" And we carry on in the conversation. I go, "Well, Colton, what did they sing to you?" And he told me the songs. And he said, "Well, Dad, Jesus had them sing to me because I was so scared and it made me feel better." I'm like, "Jesus was there?" He goes, "Yeah, Dad." I'm like, "Where was Jesus?" He says, "Well, I was sitting on his lap." Really? And I'm sitting here processing. I'm in shock because people say, "Well, you're a pastor." Yeah, I am. But I never dreamed of having a conversation like this with my son. And I start trying to put back into context, when and where did this happen? He says, "Well, Dad, while Dr. O'Halloran was working on me, I could look down and I could see him, and I could see you. You were in a room by yourself praying. Mom was in another place. She was talking on her phone, asking other people to pray." And I talk about it in the book, but that was my really get mad at God prayer. I was so frustrated. Probably the most irreverent, disrespectful prayer I ever prayed. I was just letting God have it. My wife didn't know where I was and what I was doing. That surgeon didn't know where I was. The nurses in the operating room couldn't have known. And here my son is saying, "Dad, I saw you," and telling me exactly where I was and what I was doing while he was in surgery. Caught me completely off guard. And I'm like, how do you know that? I mean, if a kid's inventing stuff, some of the details are going to be fuzzy or wrong, not all of them right. And he's like, "Well, Dad, I could see you." And that's where the journey began for us, because we were like, okay, we missed something big, didn't we?
With the book written about my experience and all, I'm not sure how it feels yet, but I'd say it feels pretty good because it's getting out there, helping people, getting them to learn Jesus.
For the skeptics that question our book, you know, I question Colton's story too. I mean, to begin with, I was not prepared to talk to my son and have these conversations. And I understand that I was close enough to my son to verify and to have these experiences to realize this is the truth. And for those people that aren't as close, I understand their doubt. The one thing that I guess I do have a problem with is how many people attack the book that have never read it. You know, that lacks integrity, and I guess I don't respect that. But people that question, I do. And I would just encourage them to take an honest look and read it, and read it even with the Bible open, and see if what Colton doesn't say doesn't confirm what's in the Bible. We're still a very normal family. We still have all the normal family issues, but our faith has been strengthened. Do we have a peace that we didn't have before? Yes, but we are not ultra-spiritual people or super spiritual, or people think that sometimes you have to be different to have God show up in your life. And we're just normal people, but God did an extraordinary miracle for us.
I think this experience makes me different from other kids because I got to see heaven and I know it's real.